All right, well, let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of Through Confusion. Today we're talking about the German problem, and I have joining me my father-in-law, Tom Haza, who can give us a German perspective on this. So some of you guys may have seen this video. It's from Dr. Jordan Peterson, as well as he's interviewing Dr. Neil Ferguson. Very interesting interview. But the German problem is a very interesting thing because you have ordinary people like you and me that get to a place where you're herding your neighbors into cattle cars to send them to death camps. And that's literally what happened. Ordinary people like us doing that thing. And that's just insane.
You know, thanks for the introduction. I really look forward to spend this time. What I really found strange, my wife is telling me that literally her aunt, who lived right in the time of Hitler, that claimed she did not know at all which was going on. So, and for me, it's always hard to believe.
Yeah, and it happening and living around places that, like these camps, that's crazy. So, for the last 100 years, people have been trying to figure out what was the actual problem, what was the ingredient that made this relatively modern, advanced society, Germany at that time, go to this really dark, demonic place. So we'll dive into that. We're going to be reacting to this video from Jordan Peterson and Dr. Neil Ferguson as they talk about this. So let me play the first clip and we'll get into it.
Wow.
So this clip, he's just talking about moral and ethic uncoupling. So let's hear
it. Arguments, one of which is that the German elites became excessively technocratic and ethically uncoupled. And it's this ethic uncoupling that arises amongst the educated Germans that is the most striking feature, I think, of the story.
Why did they?
Yeah, so
he's talking about the ethically uncoupled people, like the leadership who like he said, the technocratic leadership, and I think that's a very interesting point, right? So how leadership is influencing society and how it becomes that the leadership of a country gets so disconnected from its people.
Yeah, and as well getting disconnected from the ethical system that brought it to this place. And I think that's like when we look at the states, what built our nation? What built the United States to be the nation that it was? What built Europe to be the place that it was? And this moral uncoupling, or this ethical uncoupling, what he's talking about here, is that you're taking the ethical system and removing it from the result that you have. So you have a society that's functioning this way. It got to this point, and now saying, oh, we like this result, but let's like cut the flower from the stem, and we don't like the moral obligation it brings us. And so for you, what do you view as like Germans' moral uncoupling, their ethic uncoupling, when you look at it as a German?
The Germans were raised as a father and motherless nation. I think that's the main reason, because they have taken away father and mother, and the mother being, let's say, God, their faith, and the father is their nation, what they had, and that was due to the whole movement of like saying all what the Germans were standing for was in a way was culminating in this in this Holy Roman Empire of the German nation, which there was an emperor who was then the defender of faith and responsible for expansion of faith, and that got scattered with the Enlightenment movement, right? So they said, well, all you guys did was really, really bad. So the emperor was bad. So your dad is bad, and the thing he stood for are bad as well. So take that away. What does it do with a country? It shames you. I mean, you're nothing. You're a loser. You made it all wrong.
Yeah, and as they did that, then I think Germany comes into an identity crisis in that time, right?
Yeah.
Because if you take away, oh, your root is wrong, this is wrong, now you have a people that have functioned on this ethic, this principle, this society that's running in this way, and now you take that all away, and now they're trying to find something else to stand on.
Yeah, that's true. And and that's like a person. If you do not know who you are, if you hate yourself, let's say that, it's really hard to find a positive new ground to stand on. And that's how history was revisited and rewritten. As we say, the Dark Ages, these were the Dark Ages, and then Enlightenment came, which is a totally reversal. I think what happened. I mean, the whole idea of the Enlightenment, the French thing, which made reason the main focus on how you should decide, not any longer God's word. But that's the thing. They were very short-lived, and that didn't last for long. But the Middle Ages were declared dark and bad. So,
and that's in the Enlightenment. They now go back and say, all the Middle Ages, what we get taught in our history classes as the Dark Ages, which was really the church age, the age that the church was in power, running through, and actually, was it? Would you say it was dark in those ages? Your perspective, I guess, is a little different.
Well, I think I had to decouple my thinking first from what I learned at school. At school, you learn it's dark. And then, but now, if you look at the history, what the church did, the monks, right, the monasteries, there was a lot of good things. Yes, there were bad things. I mean, of course, but you only focus only on the burning of the witches. I mean, that's what people say, or maybe the Crusaders of Jerusalem. But this is a 1,000-year period. There were many, many very good achievements in this time.
So I guess, to conclude this little section, the uncoupling, the ethical uncoupling of the leadership, he's saying in this video, this is a really big problem. And I think we see this in the States today, in this post-Christian kind of era, where people are deconstructing the root of how we got this. And I think that's a warning to us that when you decouple, when you cut the flower from the stem, that the flower is ultimately going to die. And so the ethical system that we have in the United States that was founded on these principles, now people are going to go into an identity crisis. And I think that's where you get a really scary time, and a really a time where people are looking and vulnerable to go in a lot of horrible directions. So very interesting. Let's go on to the second clip.
Yeah.
Figure out the technical stuff. All right. So let's hear it.
Of different ways, so you're not getting at something fundamental. That's actually why I turned to psychology, and it was actually to address the German problem, which was the one that you just laid out. It's like, how could this spectacular civilization, sort of at the pinnacle of the West, go so cataclysmically wrong? And I turned to psychological explanations for that, but why were you dissatisfied with the Marxist, let's say, deterministic analysis? What was...
So, yeah, he's diving into this idea that there's something underlying it. If the most advanced, the most educated, they're economically advanced, they have money, they have all this stuff, how can this society find itself in a place where they're committing the atrocities that you see in Nazi Germany?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think today, I mean, you can look at it today, even the Germans are ashamed of their very identity. So here in Paraguay, where we're staying right now, I mean, you see this Paraguayan flag waving everywhere. They're proud of it. Americans usually are. They used to be, and they are proud of the flag. Germans are not proud of the flag, and they never raise it. So I'd say if you are in this position without this parenting, without this history which you are proud of, then well, two things happen. Like first of all, you are put to shame. And shame is something you cannot escape. Guilt you can't escape. Even as in a Christian sense, you can say, well, I can commit my sins, or I can confess my sins, and then
the guilt goes away.
Yeah, and guilt goes away. But shame does not. And the second, like shame is one thing, and the second is lie. So the Germans have been lied to about their own history, and they believed it.
And what were the biggest lies that you see that they were believing at the time?
Well, the biggest lies were, of course, that all you guys have done in the past, like these 1,000 years, the Dark Ages, that's all your fault. And your fault is, I mean, of course, then we have the two world wars, which are, I mean, we have to admit that the Germans did many things wrong. I mean, it's true. It's a truism that the Germans started two world wars, which is really horrible. But I think in a certain part, why does a nation do that? I mean, why are they so crazy? Because it's like a mentally little bit deranged person, right? As a nation, there's something missing, a core which makes them susceptible of lies. They're easy deceptive.
And I think when you're in that place of shame, then you're looking for a way out, and so it's easier to take that answer. And the propaganda, you're more easily deceived by that propaganda. But I think maybe to go into it a little more in the U.S. side of things, we're at a place in the United States where the media is trying to make people ashamed. Like, we have men being shamed for being men.
And being white.
Yeah, and being white. We have, you get canceled for that. You have, like, the whole history of slavery that's been now a big shame thing. And the way Native Americans were treated. And so all of these things add into this shame. And so people feel bad. They're guilty. And then they say, okay, what's your answer? And so they're buying into these horrible answers that aren't solving problems. Like you see when people try and give land back to Native Americans or try and do this thing, it's not helping them. Or if you say, like, let's give reparations for slavery, it's not helpful to somebody, but it's trying to pay back and deal with this shame that people have. But now you're just buying into some lie that ultimately won't solve your problem.
Right. I think what you said is, like, America in the Second World War, and like in the video they're pointing out, like, America had a similar Great Depression than Europe had. And they say, well, if you only connected to an economic thinking, that is just too short. It doesn't add up. You have to say, why did the Americans were able to behave different in a economic restraint? It was really bad time. People were poor, but they didn't go for a Hitler. But now I think these are the same people who were shaming the Germans are now shaming
or being shamed. Or they're being shamed themselves. And I think this is where the Christian perspective actually comes in, where you can deal with the shame and it's no longer an eye for an eye, but actually dealing with that in a way where, okay, you see something wrong, it doesn't help to now put on this next level of weight in, like, what happened after World War One. There were the Treaty of Versailles. And all of this guilt and weight and stuff put on Germany, and then they're looking for a solution. Which
it was just too much. I mean, they couldn't carry it, and it was their fault, but they were trying to get rid of this thing. And so Hitler came and said, well, guys, you know what? I have a solution for you. And they were all buying it. You have another clip? You want to show something?
Now? Let's jump on to the second clip. Third clip. So I think many from the American perspective, we don't really understand how much charisma Hitler had. When you watch a speech from Hitler, you're just like, some German guy yelling. You don't really understand what he's saying, and it's one part of the speech, and you're like, yeah, he's evil. Hindsight, he's demonized. But this really insightful. I think the church needs to hear this.
Unconsciousness. No, I think Hitler articulated conscious fears and conscious causes of anger amongst Germans. It wasn't that unconscious. And the critical thing you have to do if you're trying to explain this to young people is you have to make them watch a Hitler speech. And you have to make them watch the whole thing. Because a Hitler speech was a performance of almost operatic duration. Nowadays, typically, it's very hard to find Hitler clips online. They've been to a large extent taken down compared with.
But just this idea that Hitler actually carried a charisma. He was not a leader that was just like angry, and it wasn't like the German people are just susceptible people to this, right? And I think we get that wrong. You see, like, oh, they obviously fell because they had some other problems, but like you compared it to
the speech of Obama. I mean, I don't want to put Hitler and Obama at the same point, but speech-wise, like I was listening to Obama's speech at the Siegessäule, the victory column in Berlin, 2008, and when he came, Germany was they were totally anti-war. And Obama's plan was to bring the Germans into his operation to get revenge for 9/11. So and he made it within 30 minutes that a peace-loving crowd was ready to go to war. And you can find that speech online, and it's an amazing speech how you can turn around people with words. I mean, we know that.
Yeah, and to think, oh, like they were deceived by something else. I think the biggest thing that I get out of this, the German problem, is that you don't look at the German problem and say, oh, they're the Germans. They have the problem. You look at the German problem and you say, how can ordinary people like you and me commit atrocities like this? How can we get sucked in to do the same kind of actions? And of course, they say in there a demagogue, some leader, a political leader that has this charisma as well as these connections, is able to bring something like this about, but it's deceptive because it's a kind of speech that all of us would give a standing ovation to. Like, we would be excited.
Correct. And I'm probably pretty sure that in the time what that was, I mean, that the people would bring their children in front, like, listen here, this is a really good thing. That's like they were proud. It was finally someone making them proud with some, as you point out, like that's demonic. I mean, like Hitler had a demonic spirit and a power. Mm-hmm. But right now, I mean, we were witnessing when BLM in the States was like rambling through the city and destroying things. And in a way, it remembered me to the Bolsheviks, which were before in Russia, who were like the Bolsheviks. The same idea was like there wasn't preparation to this whole Hitler thing. Yeah. We need to understand that. That's in the video pretty good. That they were actually they were paid political activists. This was Lenin's great idea: pay people to cause unrest and then to overthrow the system, which was the Tsar. And I mean, you had that. I got these calls from people like, "Hey, can you hand in some money so we can bail out our BLM friends who make unrest in your city?" And so it's happening right now. We usually are mistaken by the side. We say, "Oh, these are the good guys." But the very much fascism is left or wrong. So like
left or right.
Left or right.
Left or right.
Left or right. So Lenin
it can be on
left.
either side.
It could be on either side.
Yeah, and I think so. Like, I guess what for anybody out there who's watching it, when you see these kind of things and you know that it's deceptive, how do you know that it's the real bad thing? Because for most people in Germany, what are the signs that somebody watching this and they're like, okay, this person is playing on my emotions.
Yeah.
This person is pushing towards destruction. Like if it's demonizing another people group, I think that's like a big sign of demonizing another group is a really big problem. What, like when you think of it, what are actually indicators that this isn't a good charisma, this is a bad charisma?
Well, I think it always goes hand in hand with shaming. If you take away a people's history, you make it bad, then you make people deceptive, you make them weak. And now you can build on that thing. Like it's the same with this whole like climate thing right now. It's a big thing. So you shame them. Like you shame people for, okay, oh, how can you dare to eat meat? I mean, how can you really do that? I mean, you're killing the planet, and if you fly by a plane, you're actually a mass murderer. And so and this is becoming the point is this is becoming. It doesn't start overnight. Like the Bolsheviks were 1917, so it like took like, let's say roughly 20 years to Hitler came to power. But before these traits, these things became socially acceptable to say that, and that's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, and it's growing, and I think it's hard for a lot of people. You see like, oh, why are Christians against this and for this and against this, and then on the left it seems like, you know, why are some Christians for Israel and why are they pro-abortion and or against abortion and all this pro-life, and it seems to jump back and forth. But I think there's a clear thread through those kind of things. Like there's a reason why you're trying to stay this course and to stay this line. It's hard to put your finger on.
Well, no, it's not. But in a way, the very core is always to destroy the people's faith in God. I mean, that's the very, very core. Because as you pointed out, I think it's demonic. Hitler was demonic, and currently you have all these new religions, new gods which are coming in, which are destroying Christian faith. And I think let's put it spiritually, really bluntly, it's the aim of the devil to destroy faith in people, in a nation, let's say, because, and then it started when we say, hey, even the notion that faith is a purely personal thing. It's just you and Jesus, which is totally right. And we have Romans 10 verse 10 saying, whoever believes in their heart, confesses with his mouth, he's saved. That's correct. That's right. Yeah. But it's not. It's same like saying, or a car drives because it has 4 tires. Well, that's true in part, but it's not the whole truth. So Christianity was never meant as only a personal religion. So we need to let this idea of a secular government. We have to let that go, because this is actually deceiving.
Yeah, that goes back to cutting the flower from the stalk. When you get to this Germany post after the division, the Protestant church, then you have the Enlightenment, and now retrying to establish that. So let's watch this last clip.
Accused by a demagogue and then kept in unfreedom by a fatal combination. Prosperity, that the Nazi economy was much more successful than the Weimar economy. Propaganda, Goebbels was a genius, an evil genius in this field. And then coercion. The regime became progressively more coercive over time. It used terror initially in a targeted way, by the end in a blanket way. And these 3 forces together can subjugate even the most advanced society. It is
So he's talking about these three factors that cause a free society to be able to be going into slavery.
Right.
Free societies trying to become unfree societies, and that there is a propensity for free societies to change and go to this place where like they want to be enslaved, they don't want the freedom, and then they use these three things to hold people down. Once they feed the people and get them to this state, then they use prosperity. They give them enough, like you'll be happy, you won't, your life won't be horrible, and
You have nothing, and you will be happy.
Yeah, you have nothing, you'll be happy. And they use the propaganda. So feed people the lies that sound good, the life that sounds good. We can hide everything over, over the hill, put the death camp over the hill, so you don't realize what's going on, and we'll feed you the lies of what's actually happening there. And then coercion. Once it's actually the pressure is high enough, that they'll hold you in this place. And I think it's absolutely crazy in the United States how easily people are giving up their freedom. And I think it starts with like it's all a convenience thing, right? And you start giving up your freedom for convenience. So like every big platform out there, we're using YouTube, it's convenient, right? We use it because it's convenient and because everybody else uses it because it's convenient, but it's information, right? And you sign your terms and conditions on this or this, or you want your stimulus check because that's nice, or you want your Social Security and all these things, which aren't inherently bad things, but they're not free. They're never free. And you end up paying because you're enslaving yourself in these things.
Okay, so my question would be then for you, like the Germans had their history. Now, what do you think as an American, like how close are the Americans to a new Hitler?
Yeah, I would say Americans think they're very far from a new Hitler, but like
a Lenin maybe.
A Lenin, maybe somebody else. But it's crazy how many, now after 3 years of COVID lockdowns and all of that other like stuff, BLM, everything, now there's a pushback. But during that, people wanted chop zones. Like everybody wanted the chaos. And everybody was completely willing to turn a blind eye to the amount of people getting murdered in chop zones because police murder is the real problem. So let's burn police cars. Yeah. And like the craziness. And yes, we'll do all this. We'll have our drugs, and we want our stimulus check on top of that. And it's crazy because it's creating a monster of like all of these things where you're like, oh, I thought the United States was stable. I thought like, oh wow, there really is a lot of unrest. There is a lot of instability.
It's like the same question like how to eat an elephant, like a slice by slice.
Yeah, one
bite at a time.
One state at a time.
Okay. So that's something I think. First of all, you're right that we realize that. I think the biggest deception is always if you say this can never happen to us, right? Well, we are America. We are a free country. This can never happen. Well, this is the first step into delusion, right?
Yeah. What would you say second? How's it going?
Well, I think in America has, in my view, there are very strong Christians. There are strong people. There are strong churches who understand this. This is different than the German church, I'd say. Yes, there are some strong Christians in Germany, but they are isolated. So I don't know many, I don't know actually almost any leaders who are still surviving, who stood up, who were fighting for freedom. The rest of the Christians mainly were easily deceived. I think this is different than in the States. People would stand up and that needs to be a political movement as well. But I think here is another a danger. It doesn't have to be alt-right. You don't have to be alt-right, like really extremist. I know. I mean, this is probably the difference. Like, you don't have to have 25 guns and whatever, like 10 million rounds of ammunition in your cellar to be a freedom person. But to be mild in heart, to be loving, to be having this Christian ethics in your heart is a very important part to keep it. So if that you stay meek, for example, right? So don't let that rob something.
Yeah, don't be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. I think like that's the main staying force is don't let the evil force of the world actually corrupt you. The Christian has strength in staying true to the gospel, not following the Antichrist that present themselves in the world. And in not pledging allegiance to any
new God. Yeah.
Ultimate power corrupts, or absolute power corrupts absolutely. And don't give some, even if they're a great Christian leader, you don't have to work, like, you're never called to worship them. Yeah. You're never called to put your faith and your trust in this person. And I think that's really important, that like, even if a Donald Trump arises that you're fully gone after, he's not the Messiah. He's not like no. And we will know when Jesus returns. And so we can't go after somebody like this. You can't let yourself be.
It's easy. I think Donald Trump, if we talk about it, I mean, he was this light figure. He was this enlightenment for many people because he said things which were actually resonating very deep in the heart, because he gave pride in a good way to many people. He said, well, you are not idiots and stupid. You are make America great again. Was a slogan which many Americans, I think, was resonating in their heart. We want that, right? Now we have to find a way to really actually make it happen. And a leadership in a country has to be a godly leadership, and it has to be in a way, it has to be a loving person. Only a loving person can reunite even a nation like America, because this hatred is so deep and the division is so deep. You cannot overcome it by simply just going like hardcore way. I think, at least.
Yeah, I would say the big thing with that, hatred doesn't bring about the change that you want. Like, that was exactly the problem in Nazi Germany. It got converted into a hatred or a fear of your neighbor. And I think if you hold to that teaching, the biblical teaching to love your neighbor as yourself, don't anonymously report your neighbor for doing something. Confront your neighbor if you really think they're doing something wrong. Don't anonymously report them. That's a good point. It totally destroys the fabric of society. And I say, like, if you hold to that, loving God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, loving your neighbor as yourself, you won't fall prey to the temptation of this that all these societies have.
Yeah. Well, I think it's good. Well,
amen.
I think it was the first reaction. Guys, we want to know how you like it, how we can improve. We love the time being there with you. Thanks so much.
Yeah. If you guys have any questions, you can write it in there, and we can pray to close. Yeah. Would you like to?
Yeah. Lord, I bless everybody who is listening, who's on the verge of standing up and moving towards freedom, moving towards you, Jesus. And we speak blessing over your families, over your houses and your communities. Amen.
Amen. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. God bless you all.